So that is the advantage. I shot a quick video of just adding a, trying to remember what it is. It's even still a little tacky. I added just straight Neomag medium to the surface because it was so dry, it wasn't ready to accept any oil paint on it. And then the shape and the design, you'll see, basically that's just trying to say, okay, here's halfway from left to right, halfway from top to bottom. This is kind of like dividing up a canvas. I have some artist friends who always kind of do this. And then they try to build up their composition based on using some of this grid. I just didn't have the time to code over it and do something different.
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm painting on wood for my final. I had a question. The question is, do I have to put anything on the wood before I put oil paint on it?
Yes.
What do I have to put on exactly?
You could just do a couple washes, 2 or 3 washes of like acrylic.
Okay.
Any color acrylic paint you want, or something like that. You want just something, because otherwise, wood that's not doesn't have any kind of ground on it or whatever. Yes, you can just paint on it with oil, but it might start to unevenly dry different areas. So you might start out, and it really could be very strange how it starts to accept your oil paint. So if you have the acrylic washes first, it makes it a lot easier, and it's going to feel more like normal.
Okay, so like acrylic paint put on first.
Yeah, acrylic paint mixed with a lot of water, and do a couple coats, not just one, at least 2 or 3.
Okay, because I didn't know I was just going to start painting, but thanks for saying that.
Well, it's smart of you to ask.
Yeah,
that'll help.
I was going to buy like a primer or something, but now that you said that.
Well, you can buy a primer, but most things are coated with acrylic anyway, so I would just do that, because if you have any color of acrylic paint that you think can work, just use that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Besides that, or the ones that I've shown you, I have started way back here. Can't really see it. Anywhere I put it, you can't see it. But this is my final canvas. I do have a hole that I poked into it on accident. And this is just primed with burnt umber. So I just put burnt umber on there. And I want to just start to draw out my composition. I wanted to have that done tonight, but it didn't happen. So this weekend, I'll definitely have it started. If you remember, I'm going to try to do the Venus de Milo and then add some other elements on there. So we'll see what those end up being. I did shoot a video of priming up something big like that. So there's going to be lots of videos that I need to edit. I already have them shot. It's just a question of spending the time to edit them. So I do apologize. I have not gone through and had the chance to grade everything that everybody's turned in. I think it kind of came down to the idea of, do I grade or do I try to work on the demonstrations? And I chose demonstrations because the time for demonstrations is almost over. So I figure I can always grade a little bit later. Okay, so those are those things. Do you want me to go back over the handouts for these last 2 projects, or do you want me to just start painting? Because those are our choices.
You can just start painting.
I'm just trying to pick whatever is most helpful. We can go over those other things at the end really quick anyway. So let's just start painting. So I've got my computer right over here. I am going to open up my picture of the landscape I want to use. If I am remembering correctly, I think that it was an abstract landscape on wood. So we got the wood with, I think it was mud palette. And so I'm going to just bring this over here so you can see it. So that is my, actually, maybe I should not use this. Well, I'm going to use it, but I cannot see you. So you'll have to, if you have a question, you're going to have to say it, not just ask. So what I want to do with this is I want to go through and try to just plot out where everything is and maybe start to block in some of those colors. The one other thing that I know that I need to do really quick, and I can put this back on so I can see what's going on here, is I'm going to tilt this back down towards my palette and show you how to mix the mud palette. So mud palette is basically, you can use all your colors, right? But what you need is a light and a dark pile of mud and like a light cool, so that you can always mix other things with that. I'm going to just use a brush because I've got some extra brushes here. But normally I would probably mix these piles using a palette knife. I think that makes more sense. So here's my, burnt umber. So the dark mud is basically burnt umber and some yellow. Not a ton, but enough to warm it up. So something like this. So there's my dark mud. And the idea is anytime I have something pretty dark, I'll mix it with that. So if I want to use a dark blue in my sky, I'm going to put a little bit of the mud in the blue and then put that in my sky. If I have a big Christmas tree in my painting and there's shadows on the Christmas tree, I'm going to mix some brown into the dark green that goes on my Christmas tree. And that's the idea. I'm going to save this brush just like this because I'm going to start off with this color, kind of drawing out the landscape. So let's get a new brush and let's mix the light mud. So the light mud, we're going to have some white plus some yellow, using way more yellow than I thought I was going to, and a little bit of brown into that. So it's like a light tan muddish. There's no exact version of this. Add some medium to this. As long as you have these two kind of things, if you think, oh, well, that's a little too yellowy, I want it a little paler and a little more tan. There we go. So now we have light mud and dark mud. So I'm going to save those 2 brushes to the side. I'll mix this other one. It only makes sense because I do have a landscape. I have a sky. So I'm going to want some of this, quite a bit of it. Actually, I'm grabbing the wrong color. This is actually not white. Technically, it is extra pale yellow. I forgot about that. This is my white. And I mean, there's barely off. This is very cake and creamy here. And this is has a little bit more flow to it. And I'm just going to grab a little bit of this blue to that. So it's just a very, very light blue. And the idea is anytime I need a cool color that's a light color, then I'll add this to it. So those are the 3 colors that you're going to mix for the mud palette. And you want to do those before you do any other part of this. With the idea that it doesn't matter what color you're going to pick. You can pick any color. It can be orange, yellow, green, purple, but you want to mix a little bit of the mud into whatever color it is. So if it's a very dark color, you're going to use the dark mud. If it's a light color and warm, you'll use the light mud. Or if it's cool, then maybe you'll use the light blue. And it just kind of gives almost like an atmosphere to the whole picture by using it for the majority of your picture. All right, so now let's get started on painting this. So I'll go back to my picture. And what I'm going to start off with is I want to start by maybe kind of telling myself, where are my clouds? Where are my trees? Where are the different parts of this picture? So I'm going to grab some medium. I want this to be very flowy. The one thing that you're going to notice if any of you start to paint on a wood panel or a piece of wood rather than on a canvas is that when you start to draw on here, you're going to see your brush strokes. It's going to flow. There's not as much texture. This has like a little bit of a gesso to it, so it does have some texture, but some of them you can get them and it's almost like glass. It's very, very flowy. And when that happens, sometimes what you have to do is almost do like just your block in and then stop and let it dry and then come back and get it again. All right. So one of the big things when I'm looking at my picture, there's kind of like a birch tree in the middle. And this is an abstraction. So I'm going to kind of squint a little bit. I'm going to kind of do some different things. But to start off with, I don't want it to be right in the center. I think a lot of this is right in the center in my picture. But I'm going to move it slightly off to the left. So there's a group of about 3 or 4 birch trees. And I'm just going to kind of scrub some paint in. And I'm using the dark mud with the idea that if I go through and I use this, it doesn't have to be exact. The colors that are going to go on top of here are going to be brighter than this. There's going to be a lot of brighter moments and more things added. But this is going to give me a good placement. And really all I'm trying to do is kind of set up where is my foreground. And those things that are in the foreground are going to get dark. And where is the background in the sky? And those things are going to get light blue to them. So that's kind of where my head's at with setting this up. And I'm not even going to see the ground. Like we're not going to see the trunks go all the way down and connect. So there's my group of birch trees. I guess I could do this really quick so you can see the picture. Actually, you can kind of do that. There we go. Now you can see what I'm looking at. So I'm thinking these guys here, that's what this is. Maybe make it a little bit bigger. It's an abstraction. So I just want it to feel like trees. It doesn't have to be exact. I could take this, and maybe that's what I'll do. I'll be a little bit smarter than I normally am. Usually I'll just draw it all out with purple or the brown and then go with the blue. But if I'm looking at some of these other ones, they're kind of more greenish. So why don't I start off, take some of this mud, mix up a little bit of green, maybe make it a little bit lighter. So now these are mixed together, so I don't have to worry. I do have some mud into it. That's good. And I can just start to block in with this. So there's some more trees. They're kind of down lower. They're back behind. I keep them a little bit lighter. I might leave some of that space between them. And I think I'm going to use some of this, and then I'll maybe go back in and use a darker green for some of the really dark pine trees and stuff that I think I see. So a lot of this is going to be thrown off by the fact that there's red. So I'm going to have to probably do multiple layers on this. There's a taller tree right up in here. I'm going to kind of plop that in there. And then there's another big kind of like light kind of birchy tree. And it's kind of moving up and off of the edge. It kind of makes this almost like a W, coming down, up, down. It's probably good that I'm following this angle here. If you can use a grid and think about stuff like the golden section or ratios and proportions and stuff like that, it sets up a harmonious idea behind your composition. I don't always really do that kind of stuff, but I kind of saw that it almost fit that, so I'm just going to kind of go with it. Now in the picture, this other one starts really close to this. I'm going to move it down just a little bit because this is an abstraction. It's okay if I make my own kind of rules and kind of play around with my composition. I think the main thing is when it gets down to the bottom, this one is super, super dark. Let me get a little bit of this here. I'm trying to keep it so that I can see the difference. If I kind of start to lose that, maybe I'll make this just a little darker. Kind of keep some of those parts of this that are darker separate. Then I can just see the difference between this main guy here and then this one here. That goes down. There's a couple teeny ones over here in between. They're way in the background. And then there's another big one over here, and he actually is even taller than this other one. And I think for the composition reasons, I don't mind that at all. So I think I'm going to let that happen. So it kind of creeps over onto there. Then from here, it kind of angles itself up. And maybe what I'm going to do is like kind of play close to this line and then like touch that point right there. That's where it's going to be the highest. Pretty close to that. Then I'll come back down over this way. And this is flowing a lot because I've got a lot of medium on my paint. And I also kind of coated this whole painting with medium before I even started. I did that yesterday morning probably, or maybe it was 2 days ago. It's still wet. Not a lot, but just a little bit. And that just makes it so that it's going to take up the oil paint. It will stick to it really easily. And then there's like one more kind of like birchy kind of tree somewhere over on this side over here, but everything kind of in the bottom corner is really dark. So there's that. And I'm going to switch back to kind of almost more of a straight brown, maybe even add a little bit of light mud. Ooh, that turned green to the dark mud. Maybe my light mud is actually really light green. That's okay though. We'll figure it all out. Because it really does look green to me now that I look at it. It's got a lot of yellow and not a lot of brown in it. Pull it off. Mix this in a little bit. There, it's more grayish. if I didn't like any of this, I can definitely take my rag and I can start to pull some of this off, or I can kind of knock a lot of this down if I want to, so that it starts to pull off a little bit and rough it up. I try not to be, if I'm doing an abstract version of all this stuff, I try not to be very critical at the beginning. As I build up more paint, that's when I get more, where I think about things more. I'm going to add a little more Neomag to my palette. The pile that I thought I had is pretty coated. All right, let's see. All right, I'm going to start on the sky. Sky now. The problem with what I have right now, compared to what I see over here, is I want a lot more of the sky and the clouds than I have. I think I've let the trees get a little bit. So I may be cutting back into some of that as I go through. So I'm going to get this brush loaded up with some paint. It's got some light blue paint. I'm going to start to kind of paint these little areas in between things. I'll start down in here. Part of the reason that looks extra green now, I'm realizing also, is because like the background behind it is like crazy red. So red is going to make anything look extra green anyway. There's really a whole art to figuring out how to paint landscapes. But for me, this is mostly an impression. But I will say that the first oil painting that I ever did was at a workshop in Utah, and we were doing landscape paintings. That was what we were learning. So how I'm doing this is a lot like what I would do if I was out there. The only difference being I'm letting myself kind of make up a lot more of this if I feel like it. So I'm going to keep my lighter blues down low, and just like in the picture, as I go up, I'm going to let the richer blues show up. And most of them are kind of like more up in this top right corner, and I'll have more of this lighter blue in this bottom corner area. And I think in a normal situation, I probably would have also painted, like we did with these, I would paint some kind of brownish or purplish for where the clouds are. Maybe I will do that after I get some of this blocked in for the lights. A lot of what I'm doing is I'm just kind of making some different strokes of paint, and then I'm trying to just, if it feels like it's in the right spot and it's the right shape, then I'm going to leave it alone. If it's something that really bothers me, then maybe I'll wipe it up, or I'll put it somewhere else, or I'll kind of change things. I'm trying to move all over, back and forth, all around different areas. Cover it up. I think that's good for this one. Now I'm going to kind of take this light color. I'm going to add a little bit of darker blue to it so that I get kind of a richer value. I'm going to start to kind of bring this into what I already have. Hi, Shepard.
Yeah, this dog.
Yeah. Okay.
Looks creepy.
Yeah, it does. It's kind of like Halloween, isn't it?
Why do you have that?
For class. You need to stay out of here. I'm doing class right now. You can come back later. Oh, we got a printout coming. Our printer's downstairs next to the office. So I'm painting in the office. And I try not to be too critical about the fact that if maybe this isn't 100% solid, you can see through with some of the red and some of the different parts. But I'm just kind of like, this is blocking it out. This is kind of making a guess at what I have, what I want it to look like. And get a little bit of this over here too.
Mama, get the orange out walking.
There's some clouds definitely right in here. And I think I want to scrub those in. So what I'm going to do is set down this blue brush and kind of try to get some of this extra out here. I don't have a purple with me at the moment, but I do have some of this transparent blue. So I'm going to take some of that, take some alizarin. So I'm going back to my colors from the more cool that I used. So I'm going to kind of try to make a purplish color mixed with some mud, some dark mud. Show you that's really quick. So I'm talking about this little pile here. There's the blue that I've been using. That's when I changed that color for part of the tree. Angle this back up and over here. There we go. All right, so I'm going to try to add in some of this. I think I'm going to take this and maybe add a little white to it, light it up. Feels very gray, so I'm not into that. Try and cool it off a little bit, get a little more purpley. That's not bad. I'm going to grab a little dollop of medium. Still feel like I want it cooler. Just feels like every time I mix it, it just kind of neutralizes and turns gray. We'll see how this looks. So I'm going to go. Still looks great. I'm not going to really worry about the white of the clouds for now. I'm going to just kind of, I'm trying to get a view for where the cloud shapes are. So that's there. There's a big one over here. And because it's an abstract, I can interpret where I want it to be. Do I like it? Do I want down in here? I think I do. So I'll put a little bit of that there. It's a little puffy cloud back up in here. There's plenty more of this guy as he kind of moves over. But I do want it to be a little bit separate from, leave a little space in there. These clouds just keep kind of moving and piling over and off of. It's just not coming out. I think I wish I would have used some purple. But we'll get that in the next version that's the next pass of this. I want this cloud to be all the way up in that corner. Gotta be careful. I don't think this is held in very tightly with my palette. Something like that. There's some little teeny clouds. I'm gonna mix this with my light blue for a minute. You know what that means? I'm gonna have to mix my light blue over. Kind of took over really quick. There's some other clouds kind of down in here that are lighter. And right now, I mean, you can have your own opinion. To me, this doesn't look anything really like a landscape. It doesn't look anything really like anything. I mean, I can see the connection between the two, but it's not looking very landscapey right now to me. All right, let's go for another batch of light blue. Get some of that in there. Grab a good gob of medium so that that'll flow. I might even add a touch of the light. There we go. I just added a little bit of the light mud into this blue just to neutralize it a little bit. I can always get more brighter and bold later. All right, so now I want to start to, now I have a guess at where some of my cloudy shapes are. I'm going to start to fill in more of the sky. Got some serious color vibration happening. Those color theory people. You know, this whatever blue version I just made, it's the same value as the red. So, I mean, it doesn't even look the same on the camera when I look at it versus what I'm sitting up here, but to me, it's very, very vibrating. And what I can also do is fill a lot of this in and decide whether I like it or do I need to add more blue or do I need to make it lighter. Just a lot of building up of paint in different areas. Actually, maybe even a little bit lighter version, more of a lighter bits of it over here. And then I'm gonna get a kind of a bolder version of this, I think. Get quite a bit more blue in here. Lots of medium. Start to move up and towards this corner. And I'm kind of, to make this more abstract, I'm thinking a little bit of, Van Gogh, thinking a little bit of Monet, some of those different, impressionists and post-impressionism artists, photists, who, they build stuff up with the strokes of paint rather than just scrubbing it all the way in and making it all even out, so that you don't see any of the reds showing through or that you don't see any brush strokes at all. I'm almost saying, let's see these brush strokes on purpose for now. Let's almost emphasize them a little bit to make them show up. Almost there. I'm trying to get rid of the red, at least the majority of the red. And once I do that, then I can start to evaluate, what do I have? What do I want to change? How can I make what I see here look a little bit more like what I see over there? Move that over just a little bit. There'll be times where, I do try to blend stuff in, but this is a good block in. I have where my focus tree is. Here's some of my darker trees. We've got these other elements on the sides. I don't think I'm really too worried about what happens there. We have this kind of cloud thing going this way, kind of back and behind, and then a nice kind of open area for the sky up there. I think I'm going to take my blue one more time. I'm going to get just a little bit more, make a really darker, bolder blue, and kind of mix that into some of what we see in this top corner. So it's blending. It's kind of like wet blending. If I want it to stand out, I'll just put down a stroke and leave it alone. If I want it to kind of change, then I can kind of fudge with it, blend it a couple times. I can keep kind of blending its way out. I can get something smoother, make it disappear, find a transition color there. Plenty to do if I want to do different things, different areas. The beauty of the palette project is it's a time where you can kind of explore and do different choices about things you want to try. If I were thinking about this like Bob Ross, which I'm not necessarily doing, but you may consider it if you are doing a landscape also of anything for this palette project, is the idea that you may want to paint the sky and paint the stuff in the back first and then work your way forward. If you have ever watched Bob Ross go through and make his landscapes, he kind of sets up the sky, then he starts to use his handy dandy palette knife and scrape in some mountains, and then he kind of moves forward and does some hills, and then he kind of does some water feature in the middle, and then he starts to work on the trees in the foreground at the end. There's definitely a good reason to kind of do stuff like that. When you do that, you're kind of keeping things separate and kind of working your way forward. In an abstract, you don't necessarily need to do those same kind of things in that same kind of order, but you could. I'm just not going to do that. I want to start to kind of make what I see in the picture show up here. We're 851 or 651. I'm going to try to do just a little bit more here real quick. Ooh, I got a stiff brush here. This one didn't get cleaned out as well. I want to just try and put some of the foliage and the yellower leaves up in the front. So I'm going to get some white, some yellow, get a little bit of my light mud to mix in. I've got a little bit of, this is transparent orange. Yeah, I think that's going to work. A little bit of that. So this first part that we did, that's the first part that I sketched in. It's starting to dry a little bit. So if I hold my brush kind of like I'm scumbling and I'm kind of dragging it across, I'm going to start by maybe putting some strokes like that. The red is going to make this look a little green. The trick about painting in this kind of light at night, I just don't think it's ideal for making things, seeing, knowing how things are going to end up looking in the end. And I'm going to do some of these, and I can always kind of put some. So I'm thinking like groups of leaves and little branches of leaves, and I'm trying to almost put some, more fall color, yellow and orangey leaves maybe up at the top of this tree. I want it to be a little more orangey there. So some more here. These are more going to stay in the light area of this rather than the shadow. And I'm kind of squinting at the picture and kind of looking, blocking or grouping parts of these together. It's not going to work everywhere. Probably shouldn't go too far with some of this, but I'll go through. But I don't want it to blend. Some of this is blending already, and I'm not liking that effect. But for purposes of getting this done, we got to keep going a little bit. Ooh, I like that color better. A little less yellowy, a little more kind of rusty and orange. I'm using more of the transparent orange, and I can grab a little bit of the mud to mix into it. So I don't want to use any color kind of straight out of the tube. Sometimes what you can do is you can let a color blend with, like if you don't want to actually be painting or mixing a mud into everything you're doing, instead of a red here, I could put a light mud down as my underpainting color, and then I can scratch into it and just start to paint and do wet blending to create that. So there's lots of ways that you can incorporate the mud palette. It doesn't have to just be, I'm using yellow, so I better dip the light mud in it. That's an easy way also, but you can also do it as the underpainting part. I don't know. Maybe you start to see a tree. Maybe you don't. I'm not quite there yet, but I feel like it looks more like a tree now than it did before. Maybe I'll take the same color and I'm just going to add some white to it to lighten it up and then maybe use some of that. Yeah, I like that too. The more I got away from true yellow and the more I kind of stuck with this transparent orange, the more I like the color. I'm going to try to get a couple more. And this isn't going to, there's no way we can get anywhere near a finish tonight, but that would be normal. Most of these paintings should take you more than an hour. An hour is not practical for how long painting should take you. Very rare that I get a painting finished in an hour. Can grab a little bit of dark brown. Let me get some of this transparent orange. See if I can make like a darker fall tone for some of this. I don't love that color. More transparent orange. It's my answer to everything tonight. More transparent orange. So if you have a question, I already know the answer. More transparent orange. I don't know what that looks like exactly. It doesn't necessarily look like a tree, but it will when we get to the end. We'll do a little bit of this over here also. This is also a place where there's a similar tree. Notice that I'm not making every brush stroke the same. I change the angle of how I'm holding. I'm not necessarily holding the brush like this, like I would a pencil. I'm holding it way back here. I'm trying to use my arm. I'm trying to be expressive in my brush strokes. Sometimes that's easy to do. Sometimes it's not easy to do. Let me warm this up just a little bit more. I'm also going to put some in this area over here. And maybe what I'll do is, and it's already happening just because I don't have a lot of yellow left, notice that there's more brighter dominant colors in here. So when I do these other ones to the side, I want it to remind you of the same kind of tree. But let's let this one have the most color, the most definition, the most focus, so that, when you look at the picture, that's where your eye goes. You can tell that that's where the most focus and attention and care has gone. If I put more pressure, you can see that brush stroke. I push down harder, you can see the strokes there. And at the top and the bottom, there's like a glob of extra paint there. So on a wood panel, sometimes that's what you get. You can get the harder you push it, unlike a canvas where you're kind of forcing paint into the texture. On this, if I push harder, I'm pushing the paint out and it's spreading out across the wood because it's a hard surface, so it doesn't do the same thing that the other might do. All right, it's pretty much 7 o'clock. Any questions, any thoughts, concerns, criticisms, critiques, complaints? Check in, see who's here. It's a picture inside a picture inside a picture inside a picture. I'm going to maybe add to some of the clouds up in here. We'll go back to my picture though. Some of this, I'll add it in when I want it to blend. Like now I know everything's going to blend. But some of this I might turn around and choose to paint it in after this is all dry and I go on top of it and it will sit on top. It won't mix in. If you don't want to paint a cloud, I want to paint a painted idea of a cloud. Not quite the same thing. Sorry if this is boring, but sometimes it's good to see how somebody puts something together. We give you some ideas as you go to make your palette project or some other thing. Kind of starting to remind me of some of that stuff. Mix some of this white with some of this blue. Get some kind of like, I don't like that. Looking for like a warmer, that's better. A warmer version of some of this gray cloud. I'm not going to go much longer tonight. I don't want to overextend your attention span. Definitely looks very green to me. Everything looks green tonight to me. It's probably because there's a red underpainting, so